Word of humanity's victory at Ironhold spread through the galaxy like wildfire. On worlds where species had lived under council rule for centuries, beings whispered about the exiles who had turned their banishment into strength. In the shadows, between stars, smugglers and rebels shared stories of human ships that could defeat council dreadnoughts. Ambassador Park Yunha understood the importance of this moment. She sat in her office aboard the diplomatic vessel New Horizon, studying reports from intelligence networks across the galaxy. Every day brought new messages from species that wanted to know more about humanity's resistance. Ambassador, called her aide, Lieutenant Kim Gina, from the communication station. We're receiving another encrypted transmission. This one is from the Lumdari Collective. The Lumdari were energy beings, forced by council law to inhabit artificial bodies that limited their natural abilities. They had been among the first to make contact with humanity after the exile, and their energy manipulation technology had proven crucial to developing the new human ships. Park Yunha activated the secure channel. The image that appeared showed Elder Zathmi, her artificial body glowing with barely contained power. Ambassador Park, the Lumdari elder said, "We bring news from the inner systems. The council is disturbed by recent events." "I imagine they are," Park Yunha replied. "Losing a dreadnought to exiles doesn't look good on their military reports." "It is more than embarrassment," Zathmi continued. 3 council worlds have seen uprisings since news of Ironhold reached them. The Keftar rebellion on Zarian 9 was put down with brutal force. The mining strikes on Helios 7 continue, despite council threats. And the Velmari have openly refused to pay their tribute taxes. Park Yunha leaned forward. This was exactly what she had hoped to hear. The galaxy is waking up. Yes, but awakening brings danger. The council is mobilizing the Grand Fleet, 200 ships including 5 dreadnoughts. They mean to make an example of someone. The transmission ended, leaving Park Yunha alone with troubling thoughts. 200 council ships would be more than even humanity's growing fleet could handle in direct combat. But direct combat was not the only option. She opened a channel to Admiral Taiho's flagship. "Admiral, we need to accelerate the alliance negotiations. The council is preparing something big." "How big?" came Taiho's reply. "Grand Fleet big." There was silence for a moment. Then Taiho's voice returned, grimmer than before. "How long do we have? Intelligence suggests 6 months, maybe less. Then we work with what we have. Schedule the gathering for next week. Every species that's shown interest. Every rebel group that's made contact. It's time to see who's really ready to stand against the council." 1 week later, representatives from 17 different species gathered in the asteroid field known as Haven's Rest. The location had been chosen carefully, far from any council patrol routes, hidden among rocks that interfered with long-range sensors, defensible if necessary. Park Yunha looked around the main conference chamber aboard the station they had built in the field's center. The diversity was remarkable. Kethmar warriors stood next to crystalline Lumdari. The hive-minded Nixtal sent their communication drones to hover near aquatic Nephtai in their mobility tanks. Gas-breathing Vorth mingled with the plant-like Sylvan collective. Each species had the same story: oppression under council rule, dreams of freedom, and now, hope that humanity's example might offer a path to liberty. War Chief Korthval of the Kethmar spoke first. 3 years ago we fought alone against council expansion. We expected to die fighting, but we fought anyway because slavery is worse than death. His skin shifted to the deep red of determination. Now we have hope for victory. Elder Zathmi's artificial body pulsed with agreement. The Lumdari offer our energy technology to the Alliance. Our power systems, our weapons designs, our knowledge of crystal matrices. All of it, freely shared. The Nixtal Hive Queen spoke through her communication drone, her voice carrying the weight of billions of minds thinking as one. The collective offers our industrial capacity. Give us raw materials and we will build whatever the Alliance needs. Ships, weapons, installations, we can manufacture them faster than any individual species. One by one, each delegation made their offers. The gaseous Vorth provided their mastery of atmospheric combat. The Sylvan Collective shared their biotechnology that could grow ships instead of building them. The aquatic Nephtai, refugees from Council waterworlds, offered their expertise in underwater operations and their knowledge of Council naval tactics. But it was Dr. An Seogen who truly excited the gathering. The human scientist had been working with research teams from every allied species, combining their knowledge in ways that had never been attempted before. "Look at this," he said, activating a holographic display that showed a ship design unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. It was sleek and organic-looking, clearly grown rather than built, but studded with crystal arrays that pulsed with energy. "Sylvan bioengineering for the hull, which makes it self-repairing," Dr. An explained. "Lumdari crystal technology for power and weapons, Nixtal manufacturing techniques for rapid production, Kethmar tactical systems for combat effectiveness." The display rotated, showing weapon emplacements that seemed to grow from the ship's living hull, and human strategic thinking to bring it all together. The representative stared at the design in amazement. War Chief Korthval's skin had shifted to bright gold, the color of excited anticipation. "How many of these ships can be built?" asked the Vorth representative, his gaseous form shimmering with interest. "That depends," Dr. An replied, "on how much each species is willing to commit to the alliance." Park Yun-ha stood to address the gathering. "The Council has ruled the galaxy for 3,000 years. They have done so by keeping us divided, by making each species believe they stood alone against Council might." She gestured to the diverse group around her. "But we are not alone. Together, we represent the knowledge and abilities of dozens of worlds, hundreds of billions of beings who dream of freedom." She activated another display, this one showing a map of the galaxy with Council territories marked in red and Alliance territories in blue. The blue zones were small, scattered along the rim, but they were growing. The Council believes they face a human rebellion. They are wrong. They face something the galaxy has never seen before. A true alliance of free peoples working together by choice rather than coerced by force. Admiral Taiho joined the discussion by hologram from his flagship. "The question now is simple. Are you ready to move beyond dreams and take action? Are you ready to fight not just for survival but for victory?" The response was immediate and unanimous. Every species represented committed their resources to the new alliance. The Rim Alliance, they called it, because it had been forged in the dark spaces beyond the galaxy's edge where the Council's light did not reach. Intelligence Director Shin Daeho presented the gathering with his latest intelligence reports. His spy networks, built over 3 years of careful recruitment, now reached deep into Council space. "The Council is more divided than they appear," he reported. "The minor species are questioning the cost of maintaining the Grand Fleet. Several Council members are worried about the economic impact of losing human colonies and their resources. And there are rumors of corruption at the highest levels. Council leaders enriching themselves while ordinary citizens bear the burden of military expansion." Park Yuna smiled. Corruption was something they could use. "Can we get proof?" "Already working on it," Shin Daeho replied. "Give me 6 months, and I'll have enough evidence to start a scandal that will shake the Council to its foundations." But War Chief Korthval was shaking his massive head. 6 months may be too long. The Grand Fleet moves toward Alliance space now. They seek to crush us before we grow stronger. Admiral Taiho's hologram leaned forward. "Then we don't wait for them to come to us. We take the fight to them first." The conference chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. They were talking about attacking the most powerful military force in the galaxy, with ships and weapons that existed only in blueprints and theories. "It's impossible," whispered the Nephtai representative. "The Grand Fleet has never been defeated." "The Grand Fleet has never faced an alliance like ours," Park Yun-ha replied. "Every previous rebellion has been a single species trying to fight the entire Council. We represent something new." Dr. An Seogen activated his ship design again. "With full commitment from all alliance members, we can have 50 of these hybrid vessels ready in 3 months. Combined with the fleets each species already possesses, we could field nearly 300 ships. Against 200 council vessels, Korthval mused. Numbers favor us, but their ships are larger, more heavily armed. Their ships are older, corrected Dr. On. Built with single-species technology, using designs that haven't changed in centuries. Our ships will be faster, more maneuverable, and powered by energy sources the Council has never seen. The debate continued through the night, but the decision was already made. The Rim Alliance would not wait for the Council to come to them. They would strike first, fast, and with everything they had. As the representatives departed to begin mobilizing their peoples for war, Park Yuna remained behind with Admiral Tejo's Hole. 3 years had passed since humanity's exile began. What had started as refugee camps on the Rim had grown into something the galaxy had never seen before. General Han Jisoo stood on the command bridge of the fortress world Ironhold, watching, as the latest batch of human children finished their combat training. These children had been born in exile. They had never known the soft life of council space, never learned to bow to alien authority. They were harder than their parents, raised on worlds where strength meant survival and weakness meant death. General, called communications officer, Nam Seolyan from her station. Long-range sensors are picking up a council fleet approaching the outer perimeter. Estimated arrival in 6 hours. Han Jisoo studied the tactical display. 12 council ships, led by a massive dreadnought that could carry 10,000 soldiers. It was a diplomatic mission, according to the communication they had received 3 days ago. The Council wanted to discuss new terms for humanity's exile. How diplomatic do you think they're feeling? Asked Colonel Shin Min-hyuk, Han Jisoo's second-in-command. About as diplomatic as a pack of wolves discussing terms with sheep, the general replied. She opened a channel to Admiral Taiho's ship. Admiral, the council delegation has arrived. Taiho's voice came through clearly. Any guess what they really want? Tribute, Han Jisoo said without hesitation. They want to push us further out, take some of our resources, and remind us that we're still their subjects even in exile. That's what I thought too. There was something in Taiho's voice that made Han Jisoo smile grimly. General, I'm giving you full authority to handle this situation as you see fit. Understood, sir. The Council fleet took position just outside the orbital defense perimeter of Ironhold. Their flagship, the Eternal Dominion, was an impressive sight, 3 kilometers long and armed with weapons that could crack planets. Han Jisoo had to admit it was meant to intimidate. It might have worked 3 years ago. But 3 years of exile had changed humanity in ways the Council couldn't imagine. The Council delegation arrived by shuttle 2 hours later. Ambassador Velkine of the Veltari led the group, the same species that had pushed hardest for humanity's exile. With him came representatives of 6 other Council species, all wearing the expressions of beings who expected complete obedience. Han Jisoo met them in Ironhold's main conference chamber. The room was stark and functional, built for war councils, rather than diplomatic receptions. The message was subtle but clear. This was not council space, and council customs did not apply here. General Han Jisoo, Ambassador Velkine said, his voice carrying the authority of someone used to being obeyed without question. We come with new terms from the Galactic Council. I'm listening, Han Jisoo replied, though her tone suggested she was doing so more out of curiosity than respect. Velkine activated a holographic display showing the galactic rim. The Council has decided that humanity's current position is too close to civilized space. You will relocate all colonies and installations to beyond this line. The display showed a boundary that would push humanity twice as far from the galaxy's edge. In addition, continued another ambassador, this one from the aquatic Nephtai, you will provide the Council with detailed reports of all resources discovered in rim space. A tithe of 20% of all extracted materials will be delivered to Council worlds annually. Han Jisoo listened to the demands without changing expression. Relocate deeper into the void. Report all discoveries. Pay tribute. Accept permanent second-class status. And if we refuse? She asked calmly. Velkine's smile showed sharp teeth. The Council's patience with human defiance is not unlimited. The fleet above your world is just the beginning. Refuse, and larger fleets will follow. Han Jisu stood slowly. Around the table, her officers tensed slightly. They knew their general, knew the signs. Ambassador Velkine, she said quietly. 3 years ago, your council exiled us from civilized space. You told us we were too violent, too dangerous to live among peaceful species. That assessment has not changed, Velkine replied. Good, Han Jisu said, because neither have we. She pressed a control on the table, and the room's walls became transparent, showing the space around Ironhold. The council fleet hung there, 12 ships that represented the military might of galactic civilization. But they were not alone. Rising from behind Ironhold's 3 moons came ships unlike anything the council delegation had ever seen. Human vessels, but not the standardized designs of 3 years ago. These ships were sleek and predatory, built with crystal technology learned from the Kethmar, and powered by energy systems that made them glow like stars. You wanted us gone, Han Jisu said conversationally. So we left. You wanted us far from your precious civilized worlds. So we went to the rim, to the dark spaces where you never bothered to look. The human fleet was moving now, surrounding the council ships. But you made one crucial mistake. Velkine was staring at the display, his confidence evaporating as he realized his 12 ships were now outnumbered 3-1. What mistake? You assumed that exile would make us weaker. Han Jisu's smile was sharp as a blade. Instead, it made us free. Captain Song Minho's voice came over the communication system from his flagship Retribution. General, the council fleet is powering weapons. Of course they are, Han Jisu replied. They're going to try to intimidate us into compliance. Captain, Song, please show our guests what 3 years of freedom have accomplished. Song Minho's ship moved forward, alone against the massive council dreadnought. The Retribution was less than half the size of the Eternal Dominion, but as it approached, crystal arrays along its hull began to glow with increasing intensity. The council dreadnought fired first. Energy beams that could melt mountains struck the human ship's shields and simply disappeared, absorbed by crystal matrices that converted the attack energy into power for the ship's own systems. Song Minho's return fire was devastating. The Retribution's main guns, powered by hybrid human Kethmar technology, punched through the dreadnought's shields like they were made of paper. Secondary explosions bloomed along the council ship's hull as entire weapon systems were vaporized. The battle was over in minutes. The pride of the council fleet hung dead in space, its crew broadcasting surrender signals on all frequencies. The other 11 council ships, seeing their flagship destroyed so easily, powered down their weapons without being asked. In the conference room, the council delegation sat in stunned silence. Ambassador Velkine's face had gone pale, his sharp teeth no longer showing in confident smiles. This is impossible, whispered the Nephtai representative. Council ships are the most advanced in the galaxy. Were, Han Jisu corrected. Council ships were the most advanced in the galaxy. That was before you decided to exile every human scientist, engineer, and military officer to a place where they could work without council oversight. She walked around the table, stopping behind Velkine's chair. 3 years ago, you told us we were too dangerous for civilized space. Today you came here to remind us that you still consider us your subjects. Her voice dropped to a whisper that somehow seemed louder than shouting. You were wrong then, and you're wrong now. The council will not stand for this attack, Velkine said, but his voice shook as he spoke. Attack? Han Jisu looked genuinely surprised. Ambassador, you came to our space with a fleet of warships and made demands backed by threats of force. We simply defended ourselves. She smiled coldly. Besides, who's going to tell them what happened here? The implications sank in quickly. The council delegation looked around the room, suddenly aware that they were very far from home, surrounded by people who had every reason to hate them. However, Han Jisu continued, we are not unreasonable. We will allow you to return to council. Space with a message. What message? Han Jisu activated the room's communication system. Her voice would be broadcast to every ship in both fleets, human and council alike. Tell the Galactic Council that humanity has heard their demands. Tell them we have considered their threats. And tell them that our answer is this: no more retreat. She paused, letting the words sink in. For 3 years we have built a new life in the spaces you abandoned. We have made allies among the species you cast out. We have grown strong in the darkness you feared to enter. Her voice was rising now, carrying the passion of someone who had found her true purpose. You exiled us because you thought we were dangerous. You were right. But you made us infinitely more dangerous by setting us free. The council ships began launching their shuttles, evacuating their crews to the few vessels that could still fly. Hanjisu watched them go with satisfaction. Admiral Taiho's voice came over the communication system from his flagship. General, that was beautifully done. What's our next move? Hanjisu looked out at the human fleet, at the fortress worlds they had built, at the children who had been raised to be warriors instead of subjects. 3 years ago they had been refugees. Now they were something else entirely. Now we send a message to every species in the galaxy, she said. Council rule is not inevitable, resistance is possible, and humanity is ready to lead the way. As the battered council ships limped away from Ironhold, carrying news of their defeat back to the galaxy's inner worlds, Hanjisu allowed herself a moment of satisfaction. The council. 6 months had passed since the judgment. The greatest movement of people in human history was almost complete. Chief Engineer Park Hyun stood on the command deck of the transport ship New Dawn, watching as the last civilian convoy prepared to leave council space. Numbers scrolled across his screen: 847 colonies evacuated, 200 million humans relocated, 15,000 ships of all sizes, from massive colony transports to small family vessels, all heading toward the galactic rim. It was a logistical nightmare that somehow Park had managed to turn into reality. Final convoy is ready for departure, reported his assistant, Engineer Ko Suman. Her voice was tired. They had all been working without rest for months. Park nodded and opened the ship-wide communication channel. Attention all vessels. This is Chief Engineer Park Hyun aboard the New Dawn. Today we leave council space forever. Behind us lies everything we once called home. Ahead of us lies the unknown. He paused, looking out at the massive fleet stretching in all directions around them. Human ships as far as the eye could see, carrying everything that remained of humanity's galactic civilization. Some of you are afraid. That is natural. Some of you are angry. That is also natural. But remember this: we are not refugees. We are not running away. We are going toward something better. We are going toward freedom. The convoy began to move, slowly at first, then faster as the massive ships built up speed. Park watched the navigation display as they approached the edge of council space. Soon they would cross the line that marked the boundary between the known galaxy and the dark spaces beyond. Dr. Choi Ji-won joined him at the observation window. She had been working around the clock to preserve humanity's scientific achievements, making sure no knowledge was left behind for the council to claim. Her research labs were packed into cargo holds throughout the fleet. Any regrets? She asked, quietly. Park considered the question. Behind them lay universities where humans had studied for generations, worlds where human children had been born under alien suns, cities that human hands had built, now empty and abandoned. Ask me again in a year, he said. The edge of council space was marked by a series of beacon stations, ancient structures that had guided ships for thousands of years. As the human fleet passed the last beacon, Park felt something shift in the biome air around him. They were in the void now, the dark space between the galactic arms where few ships ever traveled. Sir, called Navigation Officer Yun Jae-ho from his station. We're getting some strange readings on long-range sensors. There's something out here. Park moved to the sensor station. The display showed faint energy signatures scattered across several light-years of space. What kind of something? Unknown, Jae-ho admitted, but they're artificial. Definitely not natural phenomena. Park opened a channel to Admiral Taeho's ship. Admiral, we're detecting artificial energy sources in the void. Recommend we send a scout ship to investigate. Tejo's voice came through clearly. Agreed, but carefully. We don't know who or what lives out here. Commander Yoon Soha volunteered to lead the reconnaissance mission. She took her fast cruiser Silent Arrow and 2 escort ships toward the nearest energy signature. Park watched on the long-range display as the small formation disappeared into the darkness. 3 hours later, Soha's voice crackled over the communication system, full of excitement and disbelief. Admiral, Chief Engineer, you need to hear this. We've made contact with another species. They call themselves the Kethmar, and they've been fighting the Council for 300 years. The news spread through the fleet like wildfire. Humanity was not alone in the void. There were others who had chosen to resist Council expansion, rather than submit to Council rule. Park found himself on the Aurora's Edge, Admiral Tejo's flagship, 2 days later. The ship's main conference room had been prepared for humanity's first diplomatic meeting with the Kethmar. The alien delegation had arrived that morning, their ships sleek and deadly-looking, built for war rather than exploration. The Kethmar themselves were impressive. They stood nearly 8 feet tall with 4 arms and skin that shifted color based on their emotions. Their leader introduced himself as War Chief Korthval, and his skin was currently a deep red that Commander Soha had learned meant determination. Your people interest us, Korthval said, his voice a low rumble that vibrated through the floor. The Council cast you out, yet you do not seem defeated. Admiral Tejo sat across from the alien war chief. Defeated? No. The Council has simply reminded us who we really are. Korthval's skin shifted to a lighter shade, curiosity, according to Soha's hasty cultural briefing. And who are you really? Conquerors, Tejo said simply. We spent 2 centuries trying to be diplomats and peacekeepers. It didn't suit us. The Kethmar delegation exchanged glances. Their skin colors flickered rapidly. They were having some kind of silent conversation. The Council drove us from our home worlds 80 years ago, Korthval said finally. We have fought them ever since, but alone we are too few. Their fleets are vast, their resources endless. Dr. Choi Ji-won corrected from her seat at the table. Their resources were endless when they included human colonies. Human miners. Human farmers, human manufacturers. As of yesterday, they lost all of that. Korthval leaned forward. You would fight beside us against the Council? Tejo was quiet for a long moment. Park could see him thinking, weighing options that would shape humanity's future. No. Tejo said finally. The Kethmar delegation looked disappointed, their skin darkening. We will not fight beside you. If you are willing, you will fight beside us. The alien war chief tilted his massive head. Explain the difference. You have been fighting a defensive war for 80 years, Tejo said, hiding in the void, raiding supply lines, trying to survive. That is not how humans fight wars. He stood and moved to the star chart displayed on the room's main screen. We fight to win, and winning means taking the offensive. Park watched, as understanding dawned on the Kethmar faces. Their skin color shifted to bright gold. Excitement, Soha had said. You mean to invade Council space? Korthval said. It wasn't a question. Eventually, Tejo agreed. But first we establish ourselves here in the void. We build bases, gather resources, make contact with other species that have been driven out or oppressed by the Council. We turn the rim from a place of exile into a place of power. Over the next several weeks, the human fleet established its first permanent base on a resource-rich world the Kethmar called Drakon. The planet was perfect, heavy with metals and crystals that could be used for ship construction, far enough from Council space to be safe, but close enough to serve as a staging ground for future operations. Park threw himself into the construction. Effort, human engineering expertise combined with Kethmar knowledge of rim-world resources produced results that surprised everyone. Within a month, they had mining operations, manufacturing facilities, and the beginning of a shipyard. Dr. Choi established her research complex in the planet's northern hemisphere. She was particularly interested in the Kethmar's crystal technology. which seemed to amplify energy in ways human science had never achieved. "Look at this," she told Park during one of his inspection visits. She held up a small crystal that pulsed with inner light. "They use these to power their ships. One crystal this size contains more energy than a human fusion reactor." Park examined the crystal carefully. "Can we reproduce them?" "Better," Dr. Choi smiled. "I think we can improve them. Human quantum theory combined with their crystal-growing techniques. The possibilities are incredible." As the months passed, more ships arrived at the Rim base. Not all of them were human. Word had spread through the underground networks that existed in the galaxy's shadows. Networks of smugglers, rebels, and outcasts who had never fully accepted council rule. The Lumdari came first, energy-based beings who had been forced to live in artificial bodies by council law. The Nixtal followed, a hive-minded species whose collective consciousness made the council nervous. Then came others, species that had been conquered, oppressed, or simply found inconvenient by the council's grand plan for galactic order. Park found himself coordinating construction projects for dozens of different species, each with their own needs and abilities. It was challenging work, but also exciting in a way that the regulated council-approved projects had never been. "We're building something new here," he told Dr. Choi one evening as they stood on the observation deck, looking out at the growing base. Ships from a dozen species moved through the local space, and the planet's surface was dotted with facilities that represented the combined knowledge of peoples the Council had tried to suppress. "Something the galaxy has never seen before," she agreed. "A truly free alliance." A message from Admiral Tejo arrived the next morning. It was brief but significant. "Phase 1 complete. Begin Phase 2. Park smiled as he read it. Phase 2 meant expanding their operations, making contact with more species, building more bases. It meant turning the galactic rim from a place of exile into humanity's new home. But most importantly, it meant preparing for the day when humanity would no longer be content to remain in exile. The day when they would return to council space not as supplicants asking for readmission, but as conquerors claiming what should have been theirs all. Admiral Kim Taiho stood in the center of the massive chamber, his hands clasped behind his back. The walls of the Galactic Council Hall stretched high above him, made of some strange blue metal that seemed to glow with its own light. 12 enormous seats formed a circle around him, each one holding a different alien species. These were the rulers of the galaxy, and today they would decide humanity's fate. The chamber was cold. Taiho could see his breath in small puffs as he waited. Behind him, in the observer section, Captain Lee Minji watched with worry in her eyes. She had served with Taiho for 15 years and had never seen him look so calm before such danger. The Veltari ambassador was speaking. His voice was like the sound of breaking glass. "The humans have proven themselves too violent for civilized space. In the past century alone, they have started 12 conflicts," Tejo wanted to speak, but the rules said he must wait until all 12 species had given their judgment. He thought about those 12 conflicts. Every single one had been to defend other species from attackers. When the Void Swarm came from dark space, humans had lost 3 colonies protecting Veltari worlds. When pirates attacked the crystal mines of Kepler-7, human ships had died defending alien civilians. The Zephi representative floated in her water tank, her tentacles moving in patterns that meant disagreement. "The humans fight, yes, but they fight for others. My people live because human soldiers died for us." But her voice was just one among 12. The ancient Mordak elder spoke next, his words slow and heavy. "War follows humans like shadows follow light. Where they go, death comes. The galaxy will know peace only when they are gone." One by one, the council members spoke. Some defended humanity, remembering the times human soldiers had saved their worlds. Others spoke of fear, of how humans seemed to enjoy battle in ways that made other species uncomfortable. The debate went on for hours. Finally, Council Speaker Thainvol called for the vote. His 4 eyes fixed on Tejo as he spoke the ancient words. "The question before us is simple. Do we allow humanity to remain in council space, or do we exile them beyond the galactic rim? The voting crystals began to glow, blue for exile, green for allowing humans to stay. Taiho counted them as they lit up. Blue, blue, green, blue, green. Blue, blue, green, blue, blue, green, blue. 8 blue. 4 green. The council has spoken, Thainvol announced. By order of the Galactic Council, all human colonies, ships, and citizens must withdraw beyond the galactic rim within 1 solar cycle. Any human found in council space after this time will be considered an enemy of galactic peace. Taiho felt something cold settle in his chest, but his face showed nothing. In the observer section, he could hear Li Minji's sharp breath. Other humans in the gallery sat in stunned silence. The Veltari ambassador was smiling now, showing his sharp teeth. Finally, the galaxy can know peace. Thainvol raised one of his 6 arms. Admiral Kim Taiho, you may speak now. Taiho stepped forward. The chamber fell silent. When he spoke, his voice was calm and clear. Honored council members, I hear your judgment. Humanity will comply with your order. Some of the aliens looked surprised. They had expected anger or pleading or threats. Taiho continued. We will gather our people and our ships. We will leave council space. We will go beyond the rim, to the dark between the stars. He paused, his eyes moving from one council member to another. But know this. You are not punishing us. You are setting us free. The chamber erupted in confused whispers. What did the human mean? For 200 years we have followed your laws. We have asked your permission to explore new worlds. We have fought your battles and died for your causes. We have held back our true nature to fit into your idea of civilization. Taiho's voice remained steady, but there was something in his eyes that made several council members shift uncomfortably in their seats. You call us violent, but you forget why violence exists. It exists to protect what matters. It exists to take what is needed when asking politely fails. You have decided we are too dangerous for your company. He smiled, but it was not a friendly expression. Perhaps you are right. The Veltari ambassador's smile faded. Are you threatening the council? No, Taiho said. I am thanking you. For 2 centuries, we have been good citizens of your galaxy. We have been tame, but you have decided that even tame humans are too wild for you, so now you will see what wild humans can do. He turned to leave, then stopped. 1 solar cycle, you said. We will be gone in half that time, and when we are gone, you will have what you wanted. A galaxy without humans. Taiho walked toward the exit, his footsteps echoing in the silent chamber. As he reached the door, he spoke one last time without turning around. I hope it is everything you dreamed it would be. Later, on the observation deck of the human embassy ship, Taiho stood with Li Minji looking out at the council fleet that surrounded them. The massive alien ships hung in space like sleeping giants, their weapons powered but not yet aimed. Sir, Minji said quietly, what do we do now? Taiho was quiet for a long moment. Below them, the planet Nexus Prime turned slowly, its surface covered with the buildings and monuments of 1,000 different species. It was beautiful, he had to admit. The council had built something impressive here. But it was also a cage, he realized now. A cage that humanity had been locked in for 200 years. Now we go home, he said finally. We gather our people. We collect our ships. We take everything we have learned and everything we have built. He turned to look at his old friend. And then we show them what humans can do when we are not trying. To be good neighbors. Minji studied his face. Sir, you sound like you planned this. Planned? No. Taiho looked back out at the stars. But I hoped for it. Every time we had to ask permission to settle a new world. Every time we had to hold back in battle because it might make our allies nervous. Every time we had to be less than we are because it made others comfortable. He smiled, and this time it was genuine. They think they are punishing us, but they have just given us the greatest gift possible. What gift? Freedom. The next morning, Emergency broadcasts went out to every human colony, every human ship, every human citizen in Council space. The message was simple: come home. The exile begins now. On distant worlds, human families packed their belongings and prepared to leave homes they had known for generations. In the asteroid mines, human workers shut down operations that had fed the galactic economy for decades. On the frontier, human soldiers abandoned their posts protecting alien settlements from raiders and worse. The Council had wanted humans gone. They were about to learn that getting what you want and liking what you get are two very different things. As the first human transport ships lifted off from Nexus Prime, Taiho stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the planet shrink behind them. Beside him, his communications officer reported that similar scenes were playing out across the galaxy. Humanity was coming home. "Where to, sir?" asked his pilot. Taiho looked out at the stars, toward the edge of the galaxy where darkness waited. Somewhere beyond that rim lay worlds that no Council ship had ever seen, resources no Council member had ever claimed, and space where humans could be exactly what they were meant to be. "Take us to the rim," he said, "and beyond." The pilot hesitated. "Sir, we don't know what's out there." Taiho's smile was sharp as a blade. "Neither do they, and that's exactly the problem they just created for themselves." 2 years had passed since the formation of the Rim Alliance. Fleet Admiral Kim Taiho stood on the command bridge of his flagship Humanity Rising, watching as the largest military force in galactic history prepared for battle. 300 ships, from dozens of species, filled the void around him, their hybrid designs gleaming with crystalline power arrays and bioorganic hull plating. The galaxy had changed dramatically since the Alliance's first victory against the Council's Grand Fleet. 6 months ago, that battle at the Zirian Gate had proven that the Council's military supremacy was not as absolute as they claimed. Now world after world was rising in rebellion, and the Alliance fleet was ready to support them. "Admiral," called Captain Lim, Jiyoung from the communication station, "we're receiving surrender broadcasts from the Helios 7 Defense Force. The system is ours." Taiho nodded, marking another victory on the tactical display. Helios 7 had been a Council mining world, its population forced to work in dangerous conditions to extract rare minerals for Council use. Now those miners were free, and their mineral wealth would fuel the Alliance war effort. "What's our casualty report?" he asked. "Light losses, sir. The new Sylvan bioships performed even better than expected. Their self-repair capabilities meant we could take damage that would have crippled traditional vessels. It was their 15th victory in 6 months of campaigning. Operation Reclamation, they called it. The systematic liberation of worlds under Council occupation. Each victory brought more species into the Alliance as planets that had suffered under Council taxation and cultural suppression welcomed their liberators." General Ko Mingyu's voice crackled over the communication system from the surface of Helios 7. "Admiral, ground operations are complete. The population is celebrating in the streets. They're calling us heroes." Taiho allowed himself a small smile. 3 years ago, the Council had labeled humanity as violent aggressors. Now, across the galaxy, beings saw human soldiers as symbols of liberation. "General, what's the strategic situation planetside?" "Better than we hoped," Ko Mingyu replied. "The local defense force surrendered without a fight once they realized we weren't here to conquer them. Their commander, a Veltari officer named Kethvon, actually asked to join our cause. Apparently he's been disgusted by Council policies for years. That was happening more and more often. Career military officers from Council worlds were defecting to the Alliance, bringing with them detailed knowledge of Council tactics, fleet, movements, and strategic weaknesses. Intelligence Director Shin Daeho materialized as a hologram beside Taiho's command chair. His spy networks now reached into the highest levels of Council government. "Admiral, I have the latest intelligence from Council space. The situation there is interesting." "Define interesting," Taiho said. "Civil unrest on 47 worlds. 3 Council species have withdrawn from active military participation, claiming they need their forces for internal security, and most importantly, We have confirmation that Council Speaker Thainvol has been secretly negotiating with arms dealers to build a private fleet. Taiho raised an eyebrow. Private fleet? It seems the good speaker has been embezzling funds meant for the war effort. He's building his own power base, possibly planning to seize control of the council entirely. Shindeho's smile was cold. The corruption files we planted 6 months ago have done their work. The council is tearing itself apart from within. This was exactly the kind of opportunity Taiho had been waiting for. A divided enemy was a vulnerable enemy. How much proof do we have? He asked. Enough to broadcast to every world in council space, Shindeho replied. Financial records, communication intercepts, testimony from defecting officers. If we release it all at once, it will cause chaos. Taiho considered the tactical implications. The Alliance fleet was strong, but still outnumbered by the remaining Council forces. However, if the Council's internal stability collapsed at the same time as their military was being defeated, do it, he decided. Release everything. Let the galaxy see what their leaders really are. The intelligence release had exactly the effect they hoped for. Within days of the broadcasts, riots erupted on Council worlds. The Mordak species, one of the founding members of the Council, announced they were withdrawing from the Alliance and demanding a full investigation of Speaker Thainvol's activities. 2 other species followed suit, taking their fleets with them. Captain Song Minho's strike corps took advantage of the chaos to launch a series of lightning raids on Council supply depots and communication hubs. His ships, now equipped with the latest hybrid technology, struck fast and vanished before Council forces could respond. It's beautiful, Song Minho reported after his latest mission. Their coordination is falling apart. Half the time, Council ships are refusing orders because they don't know which commanders they can trust. The psychological effect was as important as the military one. For 3,000 years, the Council had maintained power through an image of invincibility and unity. Now that image was cracking, and beings across the galaxy could see the cracks growing wider. Dr. An Seojin's research teams continued their work, developing new technologies that combined the knowledge of all Alliance species. Their latest creation was a breakthrough that would change space warfare forever. We call it the Liberation Array, Dr. An explained to the assembled Alliance leadership. The holographic display showed a weapon system unlike anything they had seen before. It uses Lumdari energy manipulation techniques combined with Kethmar crystal technology and human quantum physics. What does it do? Asked War Chief Korthval, his skin shifting to curious yellow. It disrupts the quantum bonds that hold Council ship hulls together, Dr. An replied. Essentially, it makes their armor turn to dust. A single shot can disable a dreadnought. The implications were staggering. Council ships, no matter how large or well-armed, would be defenseless against this new weapon. How long to deploy it across our fleet? Taiho asked. 3 weeks for full installation, Dr. An said. But Admiral, I should mention that the weapon requires massive amounts of energy. Ships can only fire it a few times before needing to recharge. Then we make sure those few shots count, Taiho replied. The final push began 1 month later. The Alliance fleet, now grown to over 400 ships with the addition of defecting Council vessels, moved toward the heart of Council space. Their target was the fortress world of Kronos Prime, the military headquarters of the Council's remaining forces. The battle for Kronos Prime would determine the fate of the galaxy. If the Alliance could break Council military power at its source, the war would be effectively over. If they failed, the scattered Council forces might have time to regroup and counterattack. All ships, this is Fleet Admiral Taiho, he broadcast, as the Alliance fleet approached the heavily defended system. Today we face the largest concentration of Council military power remaining in the galaxy. Today we prove that free peoples fighting together are stronger than any tyranny. The Council fleet waiting for them was impressive. Over 200 ships arranged in defensive formations around the planet. But Taiho could see the cracks in their coordination that the intelligence war had created. Ships were positioned too, far apart. Communication patterns were irregular and several vessels seemed to be moving independently of the main formation. Captain Lim, he called to his communications officer, open a channel to all Council ships. When the channel was active, Taiho spoke with the calm authority that had carried humanity through 3 years of exile and 2 years of war. Council, Forces, this is Fleet Admiral Kim Taiho of the Rim Alliance. You have served leaders who have lied to you, stolen from you, and used you to oppress innocent beings across the galaxy. Today you have a choice. Stand down and you will be treated with honor. Continue to serve corruption and you will share its fate. The response came from the Council flagship, a massive vessel that dwarfed even the Alliance's largest ships. Alliance forces, this is Admiral Vorkesh of the Council Defense Fleet. You are criminals and traitors. Surrender now and your deaths will be quick. Taiho smiled grimly. I was hoping you would say that. The battle began with the Alliance fleets, new liberation arrays firing in coordinated volleys. The quantum disruption beam struck the largest Council ships, and the results were spectacular. Armor plating that had withstood centuries of warfare simply dissolved, leaving the ship's vital systems exposed. Alliance fighters, led by Captain Song Minho's elite squadrons, swept through the gaps in the Council formation. The hybrid bioships proved their worth, their living hulls absorbing damage and regenerating even as they fought. But it was General Ko Mingyu's ground assault that sealed the victory. Alliance Marines, transported in fast ships that could survive the Liberation Array's effects, landed on Kronos Prime itself. The planet's surface defenses, designed to resist orbital bombardment, were useless against troops that simply flew through the quantum disruption fields. The battle lasted 6 hours. When it ended, the Council's military power was broken forever. Admiral Vorkesh's flagship hung dead in space, its crew broadcasting surrender on all frequencies. Across the system, Council ships were either destroyed, disabled, or flying Alliance colors. On the surface of Kronos Prime, Ko Mingyu's forces, the Great Hall of Nexus Prime had been rebuilt. Where once 12 seats had towered over a judgment chamber designed to intimidate, now hundreds of seats filled a vast circular amphitheater. Representatives from every species in the galaxy sat, as equals, their voices carrying equal weight in the decisions that would shape their shared future. Fleet Admiral Kim Taiho stood where he had once faced exile, but now he was not alone. Beside him stood the leaders of the Rim Alliance, beings who had transformed from exiles and rebels into the founders of a new galactic order. The journey from that day of judgment to this day of victory had taken 5 years, but it felt like a lifetime. The question before us today, announced Ambassador Yang Hiejin, humanity's new representative to the Galactic Assembly, is not whether the old Council's crimes deserve punishment. The evidence of corruption, oppression, and abuse of power is overwhelming. The question is what form that justice should take. Taiho watched the debate with satisfaction. The Assembly worked differently than the old Council. Instead of ancient species lording over younger ones, every world had a voice proportional to its population. Instead of decisions made by 12 beings in secret chambers, everything was discussed openly, with full transparency. Former Council, Speaker Thaneval sat in the accused section, surrounded by his co-conspirators. The evidence against them filled databases, financial records showing embezzlement, communication intercepts revealing plans to suppress rebellions with genocide, testimony from thousands of beings who had suffered under Council rule. The accused stand guilty of crimes against entire civilizations, declared War Chief Korthval, his skin a deep purple that signified righteous anger. Justice demands their lives. But it was Dr. Choi Jiwon who offered a different perspective. Justice also demands that we be better than they were. Execute them and we become the thing we fought against. The debate continued for hours as it had for days. Some species called for harsh punishment, others for mercy. It was messy and sometimes frustrating, but it was also something the galaxy had never seen before. True democratic discourse. Taiho found his mind wandering to the changes that had swept across known space in the months since the Battle of Kronos Prime. The economic transformation alone was staggering. Without the Council's tribute system, Worlds that had been kept in poverty were now prospering. The technological exchange between species, no longer restricted by council regulations, had led to innovations that benefited everyone. Dr. An Seojan's research collectives, combining knowledge from dozens of species, had made breakthroughs in medicine, energy production, and space travel that would have taken centuries under the old system. The crystal organic hybrid ships that had won the war were now being adapted for peaceful purposes, exploration vessels that could travel farther and faster than ever before. Admiral Taiho called a voice from the assembly floor. It was Representative Velshan of the Veltari people, the same species that had pushed hardest for humanity's exile. Would you share your thoughts on the accused's fate? Taiho rose slowly. The amphitheater fell silent as beings from across the galaxy waited to hear from the human who had led them to freedom. 5 years ago, he began, his voice carrying clearly. Through the vast chamber, I stood in this place as the representative of humanity. The council judged us too dangerous for civilized space and cast us into exile. He gestured to Thainval and the other prisoners. These beings thought they were solving a problem. They thought they were making the galaxy safer, more peaceful, more orderly. Murmurs rippled through the assembly as beings remembered that day. In one sense, they were right, Taiho continued. We were dangerous. We were dangerous to their system of exploitation and oppression. We were dangerous to their comfortable certainty that some species were meant to rule, while others were meant to serve. He walked closer to the accused section, his eyes meeting Thainval's for the first time since the former speaker's capture. But they made a crucial error. They confused the system with the people caught within it. Many beings who served the council did so not from evil, but from necessity, or fear, or simple ignorance of any alternative. He gestured to the assembly around him. Today we see former council soldiers serving as peacekeepers, former council administrators helping to distribute aid to liberated worlds, former council diplomats working to bring isolated systems into our new alliance. The chamber was completely silent now. The system was corrupt and deserved to be destroyed. But the people caught within that system deserve the chance to build something better. Taiho turned back to face the full assembly. I propose that the accused be sentenced not to death but to life spent in service to the species they oppressed. Let them work in the refugee camps housing beings displaced by their wars. Let them help rebuild the worlds their policies destroyed. Let them live to see the galaxy become everything their tyranny prevented it from being. The vote was close, but Taiho's proposal carried. Justice tempered with mercy, punishment balanced with the possibility of redemption. It was a compromise that satisfied few completely, but offered something to everyone. The kind of messy, imperfect solution that democratic systems produced. Later that evening, Taiho walked through the gardens of New Seoul, the city that had grown around humanity's administrative headquarters on Nexus Prime. The irony was not lost on him. Humans now governed from the world where they had once been judged and exiled. Ambassador Yang Hyejin joined him as he paused beside a memorial to the human colonies abandoned during the Exodus. Names carved in crystal listed every world humanity had been forced to leave behind, now reclaimed and thriving under the new galactic order. Any regrets? She asked. The same question Dr. Choi had posed years ago during the evacuation. Taiho considered the question carefully. About the exile? No. Without it, we would have remained subjects of the Council forever, fighting their wars and following their laws. We would have been powerful servants, but still servants. He gestured to the city around them, where beings from dozens of species worked and lived together in voluntary cooperation. About the war? Sometimes. Every victory cost lives. Every liberated world left scars. But the alternative was accepting tyranny as the natural order of things. He smiled slightly. And I've learned that humans are not very good at accepting tyranny. Yang Hyejin laughed softly. No, we're not. Though I sometimes wonder what the galaxy would look like if the Council had simply left us alone. They couldn't, Taiho replied. That's what they never understood. A system based on oppression cannot tolerate the existence of free alternatives. They would have found an excuse to crush us eventually. just as they crushed every other species that showed too much independence. They walked in comfortable silence for a while, passing monuments to the Alliance's victories and memorials to its costs. The war had been won, but the work of peace was proving just as challenging in its own way. The Sylvan Collective is requesting permission to establish a new colony in the Outer Rim, young Hyejin mentioned. They want to experiment with bioengineered terraforming techniques. Approved, Taiho said without hesitation. That's the point of all this. Species being free to grow and explore without asking permission from distant authorities. The Kethmar are asking for military advisors to help them establish a proper academy for their warriors. Send them, Captain. Song and his best instructors. The Kethmar fought beside us from the beginning. They've earned our support. And the Veltari delegation wants to discuss joining the Core World's Economic Cooperation Treaty. Taiho paused at that. The Veltari, the species that had celebrated humanity's exile, now wanted closer ties with the alliance humanity had built. Schedule. The meetings, he said finally. Everyone deserves the chance to be part of what we're building, even former enemies. As they reached the Memorial Garden Center, Yang Hyejin activated a holographic display showing the current state of galactic civilization. Green dots marked alliance worlds, their number growing daily as more systems chose to join the Free Worlds Federation. Blue indicated independent but friendly worlds that traded and cooperated without full membership. Only a few scattered red dots remained, isolated systems still clinging to the old ways. 93% of the galaxy now lives under democratic governments, Yang Hyejin reported. Trade between species has increased by 400%. Scientific collaboration has led to breakthroughs that benefit everyone. By every measure, the galaxy is more prosperous and peaceful than it has ever been. Taiho nodded, but his expression remained thoughtful. And the remaining 7%? Mostly isolated worlds that aren't bothering anyone. A few pirate enclaves, some species that prefer isolation to any kind of galactic government. Yang Hyejin paused. There are rumors of ships heading toward the galactic edge, looking for virgin territory to colonize without interference. Let them go, Taiho said immediately. The right to be left alone is as important as the right to participate. We're not building an empire to replace the Council's empire. We're building a voluntary association of free peoples. As they stood, looking up at the stars, Taiho reflected on the journey that had brought them to this moment. 5 years ago, humanity had been a client species in someone else's empire. Today,